This is Dune Talk, a DuneNewsNet.com production. Join us now for the latest Dune news, reactions, and lively discussions.
Hey everyone, we are back. Yes, it has been a moment. We're living in June 2022 and it's time for some Dune Talk. This is the official news show of DuneNewsNet.com where we cover everything happening in the universe of Dune. The movies, books, comics, games, and that upcoming Bene Gesserit TV show. Today, we're going to break down the key updates from May, including that big Dune Part 2 casting announcement that came out one day after our last show, comic book news, and we have some more exciting TV rumors to discuss. This is Marcus, and I'm here today with all of the Dune Talk regulars.
Hey, it's Garin. It's good to be back. I know I've had plenty of time to let some of these casting decisions sink in and let me mull over them. So I'm just glad to be back with the rest of the guys.
Yes, it was a nice little vacation, literally and figuratively, I guess, for me. But I'm excited to talk. I mean, there has been a lot of exciting buzz and some news to dive into. So let's get to it.
It was our little spring break away from Dune Talk. And like I always say, as soon as I edit the show or something gets announced, I think I literally had uploaded the podcast so Marcus can look at it. And then the announcement came.
Okay, let's begin with some movie news.
Dune movie news.
So when we last spoke, there was one major role still to be cast in Dune Part 2. That's, of course, the Padishah Emperor Shaddam IV, ruler of the known universe. For those following our ongoing coverage, you'll know it's indeed a well-known name. Christopher Walken is reportedly joining the star-studded cast of the movie. He has a really impressive filmography, goes back over 4 decades or more, and he's received the Oscar Award for Best Actor in a Supporting Role for The Deer Hunter, that was in 1978, and he also was nominated for that same category in Catch Me If You Can in 2002. The news has been out for some time, but we haven't talked about it here yet, as mentioned, so I want to hear what all of you are thinking. Garin, you go first.
I'll be honest, you guys, when I first heard this, I was a little bit shocked. I know that some of you weren't. I was, though, because this is an actor who has been a part of my film experience my whole entire life. But the different aspects of his talent and skill are so broad that I just thought, wait a minute, is this the right kind of not only his look, but the emotion he can bring, the ambiance and the awe he can bring, But honestly, after thinking about it for as long as I have, I absolutely am thrilled about this. I really think, and again, I'm trying to imagine what role do I know from his filmography of the past that would match or come even close to something like, Shaddam. But it's going to be really interesting to see how he approaches this. But someone with this amount of gravitas, I think it was the right choice, and I think it will create a feeling of oppression and overbearance that's just inherent in the way he will be able to look, the feelings that he will give off, the way he'll act, and we'll yet to see what that's like. But I'm pretty excited about it. So I want to know what you guys think.
This was definitely, I'll say right off the bat, this was not anything I ever expected or predicted. That's for certain. I don't think any of us really envisioned Christopher Walken. And when I saw the news come out, I was like, well, there it is, because we had just gotten the episode up, and I was like, well, and then I was thinking, wow, like Christopher Walken, really. And it's strange because, as Garen's pointed out, he's been around for so long and has had such an impressive career. And I always think the first thing I think of probably when I think Christopher Walken is Pulp Fiction, when he shows up for the gold watch scene. He completely steals the show with like 2 minutes of screen time. He just has such a wide variety and such a wide range when it comes to his performances. And it's interesting because I was looking at his filmography afterward, and I noticed he really hasn't been in anything like too big or like too like serious or like weighty in a really long time. He is a very impressive dramatic actor, but I think nowadays, especially like millennials and like Gen Z, like they think more of him in like more comedic or goofier roles or shows or movies. And I was thinking about this too, because I had just finished watching Severance prior to the news coming out. And he is excellent in that show. And I wouldn't be surprised if he gets, some sort of nominations coming off that show, because he has a really great supporting role. It has like not goofiness to it, but he does get some laughs, and it is kind of like a darker humor. And there's emotion to it as well. Like there's genuine emotion. So I thought it was really nice to see him doing something in that way again after so long. And then of course now he's going to be in Dune, and he's going to be directed by Denis Villeneuve, who I think is one of the best actors, directors working today, especially in Hollywood. They've done such a good job like thinking outside the box for a lot of these roles, both in part one and in part two. There's so many where I just never would have picked that person. They were like not the first one to come to mind, or not even one of the first few people to come to mind. And I think the same could be said with Christopher Walken. I mean, we talked about different ideas, or who we might like to see, or who we could envision in the role. And Christopher Walken, they have gone the older route with the Emperor. That was the first thing I think I noticed, was that, okay, so he's going to be older. And I think that's fine. I know we all said that, well, if it's going to be book accurate, he's going to have to look like more like his 40s or 50s, maybe. I think Christopher Walken's in his 70s now. And, but he still has like a youthfulness to him, like under that. Like he does not come off as like an old, like hobbling around like guy. And maybe they'll play him that way, but I think they can definitely use some of his energy and fervor to good effect in this. And so I was like, okay, I can see that working. And I think it just makes sense also from like a book versus like movie perspective. Like they really haven't touched on like the age qualities of like how the spice can affect people. And I don't think it's necessarily something you have to translate over directly, because in the book, when you're writing it, it's a lot easier to be like, oh, well, this guy is actually this age, but he looks like this. And that's just what you write in the book. Whereas with the movie, you kind of have to like explain, okay, he's actually like this old, but he's acting like this because he's older, but he looks younger. So I think it works. And I'm just really, really stoked to see what they do. And I'm thinking about like what costumes they might put him in, or like what the sets are going to look like with him in them, and just how he's going to control a scene or a room when he's going to be involved with some other also great actors, but actors that we've not seen him like work with before. So I'm just really pleased, and it's just made me so much more excited, especially now that we've kind of rounded out the major roles in addition to Austin Butler and Florence Pugh. I just am really excited with all three of these choices, and they're all kind of like on the up and up and relevant right now. The hype is fully rolling now, and they're going to be filming next month, as we were talking about earlier. So I can't wait to see more.
So I'm going to agree with everyone. My first reaction was like, Christopher Walken? Okay. Took me a second to think about it. First reaction was like, more cowbells? Like, because like you said, there's a whole generation that knows him from Saturday Night Live, Balls of Fury. By the way, there's a great mashup of the '84 movie and Balls of Fury when he plays an emperor. But you got to think also, he's played kind of dark characters before. Like if you ever seen The Deer Hunter, that movie's amazing. And that's a very, I don't want to say not trained Christopher Walken, but a very young Christopher Walken. So if you look at his roles again, as he gets older and older, like Pulp Fiction, I think Pulp Fiction is my first memory of him and being like, I like this guy. He talks funny, but I like him. But he's also in Batman Returns, the Tim Burton one, and the age was one thing right away. My fiance was like, do you think he'll make it in the desert? How hot it is? I was like, whoa, not cool. And then I looked, the guy's like in his 70s. Now, like Johnny said, also what costumes, what's the makeup going to look like? Only time will tell.
I had really the picture in my mind that they were going to go with, that look in the 40s and 50s. So someone who was older, but they've been taking the spice and they looked young. And so they had the energy, but they were starting to show like cracks psychologically. So like at first I was like, okay. But then when I saw like some of his recent pictures, I said, no, like this is perfect. Like you can really see that this guy can be the emperor. It just has, looking at some of his past roles and like his appearance now, it does lend a lot of gravitas. So I think, that they definitely did the right choice. And yeah, again, we hadn't brought up his name at all, and there it was.
And it's interesting too, just thinking about it now. Like, of course, when you think of Christopher Walken, everyone thinks about his voice, or like just the way he talks. And I think that's a really interesting way to approach the Emperor. Is like Christopher Walken, just the way he talks. Like I feel he, and based on how he's directed and everything, the writing, of course, like I feel like we're really going to be hanging on like every word and like every sentence that comes out of his mouth. I think that's like really vital. Like that's an interesting, way to approach it. And it's going to be a very different Emperor to something like, which is a good distinction, I think, from something like, Star Wars, for example, where the Emperor is like this old, like slimy, and he talks like he's like a witch or something like that. Christopher Walken, it's going to be, I'm just trying to imagine, like picturing him like talking and like in these scenes from the book. And I'm just so excited to see what him and Villeneuve do. And I think Villeneuve is really, again, he hasn't been in something like this in a long time. This is probably going to be like a Best Picture nominated, potentially Best Picture winning film. And I think just having him, such a well-respected veteran, in this major role, I think that's just such a, a great tool and a great compliment to everyone else that's already involved. So yeah, everyone is just, you guys have all kind of said it, it's just really exciting.
I've also been thinking about, how is Denis going to direct the role of the Emperor with Christopher Walken, and have that either align more with the way he directed the Baron, or contrasting that with the way he directed the Baron. Because the 84 version, we have this wild, crazy Baron, right? And Denis didn't do that. Denis went with the sort of the more physical ominousness of this person with very few lines, but by his physical action, it created incredible suspense and fear, right? So I'll be really curious to see how he decides to direct this role of the Emperor, because the Emperor is even more ominous, has more at stake, and there just can't be any, there can't be any elements of humor. I guess there could be. I don't know how you would do that, because Dune is not, he's not directing this with a lot of humor of any kind. So how to make that Emperor character really overbearing and just striking fear into everyone, but yet, he's got his daughter, he's got his court, he's got, a lot of people around him. So it could go a number of different ways in how Villeneuve decides to direct this role.
I keep hearing him, and I can't do a Christopher Walken impression. I've tried for the past month in my head. I keep hearing him go, Paul Atreides, do you love my daughter? Do you want to marry her? And I just picture Chalamet going, no, just going to use her. Just going to use the title. And like Johnny was saying, it is probably going to be Oscar nominated. Part 1 did so well, should have been nominated for 11, but we've talked about that in the past. And who knows? Christopher Walken might actually be nominated for the Emperor for supporting role.
Speaking of Feyd,
bald, that's another thing. Like, what are they going to do? Because if we look, all the Harkonnens look very much the same, that pale skin, bald head. Who knows? Maybe Feyd will have the hair, and the Baron doesn't want to shave his head because he is the pride of the Harkonnens. But I'm excited. Once again, casting news that I had no idea who they were, and now I'm intrigued. It boggles my mind thinking Christopher Walken, Timothy Chalamet, yeah.
I just saw the trailer for Elvis, and I was just blown away by Austin Butler's performance just in those scenes from the trailer. I was like, oh my gosh, this guy has so much energy, and
I can't wait. I can't wait to see him
around his character. I was like, wow, who is this guy? So you need that with a Feyd-Rautha. You need a lot of charisma and a lot of power coming through that performance.
And that's actually a great segue. So I was just going to bring that up. Austin Butler has been right in this shining in the spotlight with the premiere of Elvis at the Cannes Film Festival, and he's been in a large number of interviews. We haven't heard that much about Dune yet, but in a New York Times interview, it was specifically mentioned that he has started intensive knife fighting training for his role in Dune Part 2. So Simon, I remember you weren't really familiar with Austin Butler when we were first discussing this casting. What do you make of that comment, and how are you thinking about him and his fit for the role?
So I'm going to be honest. Once again, I still don't know him that much, but when I went to go see Bob's Burgers, yes, I saw that in the theaters. There was a trailer for Elvis, and even when I saw Doctor Strange, and I was like, well, crap, I kind of want to see this. And then I was like, oh, he's going to be Feyd-Rautha. but he sold me as Elvis in that 2-3 minute trailer, and now I'm like, still a pretty boy. And I love that he's doing like knife training, because that is going to be so crucial for Faye's character. It's not just the end battle scene with Paul. Faye is a knife, I don't know, a knife expert. Is there a word as someone that's like trained in knives? But I'm excited. I'm excited also. Are we going to have the hair? Is he going to...
Yeah, it's chiming in on both of your reactions to seeing him like in the Elvis trailer, for example. And I was following the Cannes, premiere, and Elvis getting pretty decent reactions so far. And the one universal thing that everyone agrees on is that Austin Butler is amazing and like makes it worthwhile to watch, at least. So that's really promising. And they're already talking about him like potentially being a Best Actor nominee and things like that. So hopefully, he'll be carrying that momentum, and he's going to be filming basically a month after, or a couple months or weeks after Elvis comes out, which comes out later this month in June. So, and that's a Warner Brothers film, and Warner Brothers is involved in Dune, of course. So there was definitely, I'm sure there was already internal rumors and discussions that he was really great in Elvis, and that people were excited about his potential. So you can see, I think it makes more sense now than it did a few months ago of him being cast. I think if the casting news came out tomorrow, people would be like, oh my God, Austin Butler, he's going to be Feyd. Like that would be like really exciting compared to how it was originally. So I am very pleased to hear. It was nice because that was really the first official word we had heard from like a direct source, an interview with Austin Butler. And just the tidbit alone of, yes, he's doing intensive knife training. I think it'd be really cool, and it would just give you a perfect introduction and kind of insight to who Feyd is. But yeah, and I also noticed just another thing is, he's not an especially small guy. Like he's bigger than Chalamet, like height wise. But I also noticed with the Cannes photos that I saw, like he's actually like kind of bulked up even more since I like last saw him and was keeping up with him. So I feel like he's going to be like a physically strong contrast to Paul and Chalamet, who's much, more slim. So I think he's going to bring it physically and personality wise, the charisma that we were mentioning that we already see in his Elvis performance. I think it's going to be just a really interesting mix. And even in, again, I think we talked about it already. I saw him in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the Tarantino movie from a few years ago. And he plays like at the end of that movie, like he's playing like a deranged, like crazed killer. So I think he has the look in his eyes, and he can do, especially if they have that hair going in his eyes as well, that could certainly help. So I'm really excited. Again, we haven't, this is kind of back to back with the Walken news, really exciting stuff, and haven't really heard too much or seen anything else on the Florence Pugh front, but I'm sure we'll get more in the coming weeks and months there as well.
And that makes me think back to comments from already some months ago where Denis Villeneuve was in an interview, and he was saying that Feyd is going to have a very important role in Dune Part 2. And, like in light of what we know now, that totally makes sense. And yeah, and like if you're trying to completely avoid spoilers about Dune Part 2, maybe skip ahead for a minute or so. But
really exciting, because we all know Feyd has he likes his knives and his bladed weapons, so that'll be cool. And I hope, I'm just thinking about like the gladiator scene. I don't know if we're gonna get it, but
around the time when Dune Part 1 was coming out, before that there was this discussion that potentially one of the early scenes in the movie would be Feyd, who is going to be fighting Lieutenant Lanville, because Lieutenant Lanville, we see him a named character in the Atreides army, and we don't see what happens to him after the attack. But then we know that the plan, it could have changed, is that Feyd is going to fight him in the arena, and that would likely happen very early in Dune Part 2. We don't know if it's going to be the opening scene or one of the but it's likely going to be an introduction to Feyd in the movie.
I think it would make a huge shocking impact if that's how you're introduced Feyd, or Part 2, and being like, hey, this is still the same universe, but it's going to get more messed up, and it's going to get more violent before you know it.
There's a real opportunity too with the Feyd character, and it'll be interesting to see how Denis decides to do this and how the script plays this out. But you've got a real opportunity to take Feyd as a character who not only is the antithesis to Paul, but you've also got him as a threat to the Baron, and that's pretty clear in the book, and that did not happen in the movie, in the '84 movie at all. So to be able to establish Feyd as not only this threat to our hero as we know it in Paul, but also sort of political intrigue and the tension between the Baron and Feyd, which I really hope that's in the script, because I liked that part of the story. It created a lot of different potential outcomes as I'm experiencing the story for the first time. But yeah, I'm with you, Johnny, as well. That gladiator scene, I think, would be an incredible opportunity to just establish, wow, this Feyd character is ruthless. I mean, he's bad to the bone. You know, you want to have that image of Feyd in your mind. He can't just be this, sort of, milk toast kind of a threat. He's got to be the real deal to have that end really have the climax and the weight that it needs.
I've always thought this thing, Feyd-Rautha, was so comical, even as a kid. Like, even before I read the book, I was like, this guy's not like scary or impressive. He's just over the top. And like that line, like, I will kill him, is so bad. And I've never thought of Feyd as a badass until I read the book. And then I was like, whoa, hold on. This character is something completely different than what we see on screen. And I think Denis will give us the Feyd, from the book. And I think showing the gladiator scene is so crucial, because it'll also show a threat instantly. If that's how we open the film, it will be right away like, ooh, who is this guy? And why is he so important?
Just real quick, just something that like crossed my mind. It's not an exact parallel, but I think it could be interesting to think that Villeneuve has kind of worked with an almost similar relationship, and there has been some similarities between them. But in Blade Runner 2049, there's a couple elements to who the antagonist is, right? So we have Neander Wallace, who is the big bad up in his fortress, and he's really kind of the philosophically like the opposition, and kind of has this corrupt way to him and his company. And then we have the one who's actually on the ground going out and doing things and killing people and getting their hands dirty is Love in that film, played by Sylvia Hooks. And I think that you can only see something similar with Baron and Feyd, because Baron, of course, he doesn't really physically kill anyone ever. He doesn't necessarily get his hands dirty, but he is the figurehead, and he does have this other person who he talks to and he kind of talks down to in some ways, and sees him as like, he wants them to be elevated, but not too much to like, encroach on their own position. So, I think that's going to be interesting to see. We've seen Villeneuve do that well before, I think, or at least I thought that it was well done in that movie. So I'm hoping we get, even in that movie, you don't have a lot of lines between them, but you understand the relationship and kind of what's going on internally. So I think that'll be really interesting to see that maybe carried over to some degree in this. And yeah, I think as Garin said, you definitely need to establish not just Feyd, but the relationship between Feyd and Baron, because that is important to understand both the Baron more and Feyd more, and just the Harkonnens in general. So yeah, there's a lot. Part two is just gonna be crazy. Like, I know people, especially if you're not a book reader, like you're probably like not totally sure what to expect, but there's just so much that they can tackle. And I trust that they've made certainly changes and cut things from the book. And I'm excited to see what is different. And we actually have, I think, a comment that I'm leading into. Javier Bardem was talking about the screenplay recently, and I think Marcus is about to mention that. So.
Yeah. So Javier Bardem, he was in an interview recently, and he was actually quite open about his thoughts on a Dune Part 2 script. He said that like he was emotionally moved by it. So it's good to see that the actors they've seen this and they're happy with the direction that it's going to. And of course, Javier Bardem himself is going to play a major role as Stilgar in Part 2 as well. We're going to see a lot more of the Fremen culture, his leadership, Cheney. So it's going to be a lot to look forward to, like both the Harkonnens, the Fremen, the House Carino. It's just so much to look forward to.
And I really liked his comment as well, of course, that he was being so open about it and so clearly excited. But I like what he was saying about, there's going to be like the spectacle to it. There's also going to be like the emotion. And he was saying how maybe if you've read the book, of course, you're not going to be surprised by what happens because you know what happens. But he said just the way it's done, how it happens. And I'm just thinking about like the writing, the script, like structurally how things could be put together, and like the editing, Joe Walker, like, coming back after winning his Oscar for Part 1. I'm just really excited because there's a lot of action in the movie, and there's a lot of balancing different plot lines, different characters there as well, especially after part one. So yeah, that is really promising. And of course, it's not like he's going to say anything negative about it, but I'm just really glad that, he felt, speaking about it in that way. And man, it's going to be, and that's the thing. I've even said this, I think I was saying this even before part one came out or as part one was coming out, but I was just saying, on Twitter, like, as much as people are hyping up part one, or as much as people are enjoying part one or impressed with it, I feel like part two is going to be just that much better. Like, I do think there is a lot of potential, because as Villeneuve said, it was difficult to kind of get part one where you have to introduce all these different elements. And now he can just like really have fun and like cut loose and be more involved in the imagery and the cinema of it. And I'm just, I think that is going to be Villeneuve cut loose even more compared to what we got in part one. And we all really liked part one. I think that bodes well for everyone.
One thought that I had about after reading the Cannes comments by Javier Bardem, I'm glad to know that an actor of his caliber and his taking his role so seriously in part one is pleased with the script. That he said he was moved by it. It has the spectacle, but it also has the emotion. That makes me feel good, because as a longtime fan of the book, you could really create so much complexity that it would collapse under its own weight if you're not careful. And obviously, we all trust in Denis. We know he's a master of this craft. But the way he handled part two, which was to simplify it in a way that we don't even know a lot of names of characters. We as the book readers, we know all those names, but people that hadn't read the book, they didn't know, all the people in that we saw or knew their names or their backgrounds. But Denis did that on purpose. He wanted to make sure people weren't having to write down a list of names as they're watching this introduction to this universe. They needed to be in the story, in the characters, in the emotion. So the way this is handled, I hope that the balance between the spectacle and the intricate, plots within plots within plots, as we know from the book, is handled in a way that we end that film with just this huge, exhilaration, instead of this, I don't know what I just saw. This was too much to handle. I hope that balance is done right, because there's so much going on in this story, and there's so much that you would want to put on screen because it's so creative and unique. It's so far beyond what we know in typical sci-fi in today's story writing. So I just think there's a lot of potential for it to be incredible. I also think there's some risk with this.
I agree with you, Garin. I mean, we all come to Dune for different reasons. Like, sure, I love seeing people ride a giant sandworm. Who doesn't, right? But I also love the quiet, intimate moments when it is the characters talking about their lives. It is about the political game and the strategy, the plots, all that. So I think Denis did that perfectly in Blade Runner 2049, because you could have made it this big sci-fi showing the city, showing the world. But when you look at Blade Runner 2049, and I'm sure Johnny hopefully will agree with me, it's a very quiet movie, a very personal movie with the Ryan Gosling and obviously Harrison Ford character, but it's really about Kay and his journey. And I think we're going to get the over-the-top action scenes that will drive some people to the theater just for that. And hopefully they'll stay and be like, oh, I like the message of this movie, this world. And for me, it's really getting to Paul's head and Chani and, Jessica and everyone else, and seeing what they're going through and how their world is changing. Especially, Paul and Jessica are going to enter a world that we just saw for maybe 2-3 minutes, if that, at the end. And I'm glad that we're going on that journey with them. What is it going to be like from being these bourgeois people on Caladan to being stripped to nothing and restarting their life? So it's gonna be a lot of fun. It's gonna be interesting what direction they really go with it.
I'd like your guys' opinions on, can you do that part two in 2 hours and 10 minutes?
22 hours and 10 minutes? Yeah, you can do it. I think with the amazing Joe Walker, you can do it.
That's true. That's a great point. If anyone can do it, Joe can.
Yeah, I mean, people complain about the Batman being long, but I thought it was the perfect time. And, maybe it will be a 3-hour movie. Maybe it would be a 2.5-hour movie. And let's not forget, credits nowadays are about 10, 15 minutes just by themselves. It's good. That's one of the biggest things that I think about when it comes to part 2, and especially for Messiah. How can you fit all that in like 2 hours, 2:10, something like that?
Yeah, it's a difficult thought because there is a lot to fit in. I mean, that section of the book is shorter. I mean, it's one of the shortest parts of the book, the third part. But on the other hand, there's still so much introductions left, because we still have to explore those other factions that I was talking about. We're going to be introduced to the Fremen culture for the first time. So yeah, from my perspective, it's going to be a challenge to fit all of that into like 2 hours, 2.5 hours.
I believe they're up to it.
Now, we don't have any casting announcements about someone by the name of Count Fenring, so maybe that character's not there.
Given what part 1 was like and what we can like expect already from part 2, of what we know needs to happen, I'm like not totally, and I said this months ago, I said I'm not completely convinced that those characters are going to be around in part 2, which I know is going to like make people mad most likely. And that's just how adaptations go. Some characters get completely cut. Some subplots get completely cut, as we saw in part 1. So that's just the nature of the beast. I don't necessarily have like that much attachment to those characters. I know they're fun and kind of cool, but I think if you're thinking of things like right off the bat, what can we get rid of? I feel like that was probably like one of the very first things they thought of. And I could be totally wrong. Maybe they will be in there. Maybe when they go into production, usually they put out the press release that has like some of the newer cast members, or even on the part 1 press release when they started filming, Sharon Duncan Brewster was not listed on there. We didn't know until like over a year later when they did the Vanity Fair reveal that she was in the movie and was playing Kind. So we could maybe not know for a year or more if Fenring's actually in the movie, or the Fenrings are in the movie. But yeah, there's a lot of moving parts. And I'm sure probably even we're going to see more maybe minor Fremen characters that we still need to know, like who's going to be cast in that, or it could be smaller actors or actors we're just not as familiar with. Like I wasn't very familiar with Sharon Duncan Brewster. So I like that there's still, even with these 3 big castings that we're all excited about, there's a lot of still unknowns or other things that we can look forward to that we probably don't know about yet. With pre-production ramping up in Budapest and filming next month, I did see Shane, and I'm probably going to mispronounce his last name, Shane View, we'll say that. He's listed as a set decorator on the film, in addition to, he's the only set decorator listed right now. And then that's in addition, of course, to Patrice Vermette, who is the production designer who won the Oscar on the first movie. Susanna Sipos, she was the set decorator on part 1, and she also won an Oscar for her work on that, deservedly. And haven't seen her listed on there yet. I'm not sure if it's maybe just be delayed. I heard that I think she's going to be working on it from like an interview she did around the time of like the Oscars. So I would expect she'll still be involved, even if View is in fact involved, which he may not be, but he is listed there. And a lot of times they do add their own credits as they like get work. So that would be very exciting if he is involved, though, because he has worked on the last few Guillermo del Toro films, who is one of the more acclaimed visual directors and filmmakers. And certainly like Crimson Peak and The Shape of Water and Nightmare Alley. Those are all beautiful movies, and especially the sets are very ornate and are very well decorated and filled and everything. So, and he even won the Oscar for The Shape of Water over Blade Runner 2049, which I'm still a little mad about, but that's okay. He has his trophy now. So if he's involved, I think that's a very great addition, of course, and it would make perfect sense if his schedule's open. I'm sure a lot of people are probably itching to get involved with this movie, especially after it won 6 Oscars. So very, very cool if he is going to be working on the film.
Last topic on the movie side. So a couple of weeks ago, the Open Casting Agency, and they're based in Budapest, Hungary, they posted on their social media that they're looking for bald people for an American sci-fi super production.
I'm bald.
And the shooting period is listed to be between July and October 2022. So it's totally possible that they're referring to Dune part 2 here. So yeah, Simon, is this something for you? Do you want to head over to Hungary this summer?
So Best Buy, I need some time off. I know my boss is a big Dune fan. So Keith, is it cool? Honestly, I think it's interesting. It lines up right around that time that production would be there. And it's going back to the whole Harkonnen. And I'm sure we'll see, we're talking about how we're going to be introduced to the Fremen culture. But let's not forget, we weren't really even introduced to the Harkonnen culture. And I feel like that's going to be another layer in part 2, where we're going to see Feyd and, Raban create their army and create, them taking over Arrakis, while Paul and, the Fremens are in hiding at that point. So I think it's interesting that they're looking for people of especially bald. I mean, anyone can shave their head, but I think it lines up kind of too perfect. If you know, you know.
Yeah, so who wants to be a Harkonnen? And now it's time to talk about expanded news. So this is a segment, remember, that we cover everything else happening in the universe of Dune.
The Duniverse, books, comics, games, collectibles, and more.
And we do have some more TV rumors. Film industry insider had disclosed to Secrets of Dune that the crew of Dune, the Sisterhood, is going to be assembling in September this year. And the TV show is allegedly going to be filmed at Troy Studios in Limerick, Ireland. It was also mentioned that this is going to be a almost entirely studio-based production. Johnny, have you had a chance to look through this news, and what do you make of it?
We anticipated with the recent news of the director being attached to do the first couple episodes, and Legendary finally speaking on the show after not speaking on it for like close to a year now, I would say. That was promising. And I said around that time that while this news is already coming out, they're probably going to be working on casting. They're probably going to be getting pre-production ready. And that would lead me to believe they're going to be filming before the end of the year, at least. And September, fall, October-ish maybe makes sense. I think a lot of people were expecting that they might be filming in Budapest at the studios there where they're doing the films as well, which does make sense. I mean, they do make shows there. Moon Knight, I know, for example, was one that was made there, and that was another streaming show. But this studio in Ireland is also very popular as well, for Game of Thrones in particular, as was mentioned. So that makes sense. They have the resources, they have the size and the scale that if you're thinking about Game of Thrones, what you saw in that show, I would expect the same with the Sisterhood series. So I think it all lines up. It all makes sense as far as the timeline, as far as the location. And it did seem, I know a lot of people, well, at least my first thought when I heard Ireland, I was like, are they going to be trying to like do some Caladan scenes or like maybe another planet maybe? But then when I realized it was for the actual studio space and that they are probably going to be doing almost entirely interiors for this, that kind of also checks out. And I'm just excited to hear more, see more. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to casting. Curious to see if we get mostly unknowns or if we get a mix of bigger actors, or if we get, some bigger actors in the show, if it's going to be kind of more of a Game of Thrones kind of started out. People knew who Sean Bean was, and people knew, a couple of other actors, but for the most part, it was people that we had never really seen or heard before. But I think with Dune blowing up as a franchise, and with HBO and HBO Max really going at it with these other services, it would make sense if maybe they go for at least one or two, maybe more well-known actors. I think that'd be exciting, but I'm all open to it. And I'm excited to see not even just in front of the camera, but who else they get to direct the episodes. They're off to a great start in that department. And then also who is involved creatively, cinematography, design, things like that. And I would imagine over the summer, probably gonna get some more of that.
I honestly think we might get a couple big names to get, the common person to sit down and watch the show. But very much like you were saying about Sean Bean, was probably, like, I'm not a Game of Thrones fan. I've seen the first season, but I'm sure there was the Sean Bean fans and people that were into that era being like, hey, I'm going to watch it because so-and-so actor is there. And I think it's going to be a lot of unknown. This show is a mystery to me. As much as I love Dune, I think it's a big mystery. And I don't even know if we'll see Caladan or any planet except Arrakis that we're familiar with, because it takes place such a long time ago. And the characters that are going to be cast, if they are sticking with it, it was centuries ago, we're not going to get a Jessica. We're not going to get, so-and-so. So it's a mystery. I like that they're doing it somewhere where they have room to create the sets. And what people sometimes often think of, oh, well, they're just shooting out on a set. It's not going to be that epic. Watch the making of any of your favorite movies, and you'll see what you can really do with set designs. Like, I recently watched the Batman making of, and it's amazing like what they could pull off in those sets. And also, I am drawing a blank. Johnny probably remembers that new thing that Disney's using, and they use also on Batman.
The
what is that called?
volume
The
technology.
volume.
Yeah.
The volume technology makes the green screen and blue screen look like crap. There's no other word for it. It's so amazing. And if they have the right art direction, and I believe they will, it's gonna be a show that's gonna change, TV, very much like Dune Part 1. And I feel like Dune Part 2 will definitely change how we look at films.
Real quick commenting on that. That is a great point, and actually one that I meant to raise earlier when we were talking about what to expect, like visually. I think it would be interesting if they introduced that technology, those LED like screens and the volume itself, where they can really, it makes green screen and blue screen almost obsolete. And I think it wouldn't surprise me. Greg Fraser has really pioneered that technology, which is just one of the reasons why I love him, and I think he's brilliant. He used it. It was really first used on Mandalorian, the earlier season, and then they've used it subsequently on other Disney productions. And he used it on the Batman. He brought it to the Batman. That was the first DC film or Warner Brothers film that used it. And I'm curious to see if they do use it on Dune Part 2 now that he has even more experience and he has used it in a feature film before. I could see that working maybe for like even the Gladiator scene potentially if they were going to do that, and in plenty of other scenes as well. So I'm sure Patrice Vermette will have his take on that, and I'm sure he's going to want to build as many sets as possible. But I think that would be really cool, and I could definitely see the show utilizing it, especially if it's going to be mostly interiors and things like that.
The point about Game of Thrones, because that was shot in like several scenic locations across Ireland as well. So I could see it, even if it is a mainly studio based, they could take advantage of like the beautiful scenery of Ireland. I mean that. Like it's a small country, but there's just so much amazing scenes from the north to south. If you drive through there, it's incredible. Some of the places you can see.
Yeah, and that's another point too. Is this is part of the news of where they're going to be doing the show, seemingly, but it's not maybe the whole picture. Like they may be going out and doing location photography. Maybe not even just in Ireland. I know Game of Thrones did different deserts. They did Croatia. They did Iceland. Maybe part of this. Maybe they will go to Jordan or the UAE or other places, and maybe not even necessarily desert locations, but wouldn't surprise me if that is like a component of it, if not in this season, maybe in later seasons.
And one other interesting production that was filmed there recently is the Apple TV Plus adaptation of Foundation. So that was filmed in Troy Studios, and they actually employed 500 people, production workers during the filming of that. So they can handle pretty large scale.
Yeah, that Foundation series, unfortunately for me, it was more visually astounding than the storyline, because I'm such a fan of those books. But it had a broad range of environments and outdoor scenes, a lot of indoor stuff. It was beautifully shot. So yeah, there's a lot they can do at that studio. The thought that comes to me, you guys, is if you're creating a TV series like this that has a tie-in to a movie that was extremely successful, we anticipate part 2 being extremely successful, if not more. How much do you connect with? Obviously, it's the same universe. We all know that, but does it feel the same? Does it feel like a watered down version of what we experienced in part 1? Is it connected enough that we know we're in that universe and these Bene Gesserit people feel like what we experienced with the Reverend Mother and the others, and even Jessica herself? I'll be curious to see how well the connective tissue, how strong it is between the movie and the TV series, because sometimes, I can't think of an example, maybe some of you can, but sometimes we hijack a franchise or a movie or a storyline, and then we try to reenact that, but it's on a much lesser scale and it just doesn't deliver. So this has got to be really well written, really well acted. It's got to feel somewhat on par with the quality of part 1, because that's the thing that I think people are coming away from in watching Dune Part 1 is like, that was just a work of art. What emotions I felt, what visually I experienced it was just an incredibly well-crafted experience. I want to make sure they don't dumb it down on this series, but they don't have the kind of budget like you do on a movie, like you said, Johnny.
I think that's very much the Disney plus Marvel / Star Wars stuff. I mean, obviously you're going to go see the Marvel movie. You're going to expect the big epic adventures. Same with, Star Wars stuff. And there's been good Disney plus and there's been bad Disney plus. Like for me, I think Moon Knight is probably one of the best Marvel MCU stuff that's been put out ever.
Great.
But I'm also someone that likes the Eternals. So, who knows? But I think it depends on your creative team and how your producer will get you the funds, pretty much how well the team will work together. Going off topic a little bit, there's an amazing show on Paramount Plus right now called The Offer about the making of The Godfather. And if you look how hard they fought to make that movie, it's amazing that it was ever made. So I think it depends about the creative team, the people that are working behind the scenes. And you might have some producers on any show. I'm not just saying this, Dune show, even some Marvel stuff, Star Wars stuff. That's like, cool, we got the contract, we're going to do it. And then it comes to the bottom of like, I really want this show to be something special. I want this show to not just be like, oh, it was a streaming show. And I hate the word streaming show because I feel like most TV nowadays is streaming TV. Like I heard Stranger Things season 4 is amazing, but I haven't watched it yet. But if you look at those budgets, they are big action pieces and create that world. So I think it really comes down to who's working behind the scenes. And I'm not just talking about directors or editors, but it is the art direction. It is the producer. It is how hard they really want to fight for that project.
With Legendary, I feel like they've been a really great steward so far as we've seen one film and we're going to get the second film, but they won 6 Oscars in addition to 4 other nominations. They made good money, more than like you probably would have expected during the pandemic. And then you also have the fact that they have that already in motion on the film front. I'm just thinking from their perspective, Legendary must be thinking, well, this is going so well, we need to make sure. And they see what's going on at Disney Plus. They see what's going on with these other streamers and how the dips in quality can affect how people perceive it. I think they're just like, that's why they just want to do one show to start, really focus on that, and then build out from there maybe. But I trust them so far. They haven't like done really anything wrong creatively. So fingers crossed. But yeah, shows are a whole different beast.
These are rumors, so like the filming in Ireland, this is like as mentioned, it hasn't been verified, officially announced, but we did have the official announcement just also in May about Johan Renck, who's directing the first 2 episodes, and that did include a synopsis. So the official press release included a short synopsis that basically reads, Dune: The Sisterhood is set 10,000 years before the ascension of Paul Atreides. The TV show follows the Harkonnen sisters as they combat forces that threaten the future of humankind and established a fabled sect known as the Bene Gesserit. And then if you remember, before that, we had rumors, which was on the giant freaking robot, that they had reported potentially that the title of the show is going to be Sisterhood of Dune Mind Killer. Again, that hasn't been confirmed, but the way that they describe the synopsis, that also matches up with this official one. So based on all the information we have so far, this is basically connecting to the novel, which was published in 2012 from Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson, Sisterhood of Dune, which tells the origin tale of the Bene Gesserit. So like how that faction was formed after the Butler and Jihad. We don't know if it's going to be an adaptation or if it's going to be like based on that story, but like very different. But it sounds like that is going to be related to that source material. So that should give us some idea of what to expect. Yeah, and we also do know at least one planet that we're going to see, which is Wallach 9, which is the Bene Gesserit homeworld. One of the things that I was thinking, again, this is just all based on like the combination of official and rumors, like we might not even see Arrakis in season 1, right? Because we might see the formation of the Bene Gesserit, things going on in other part of the universe. So I think that yeah, I mean, it is a universe of a million worlds. There's so much for them to explore. I could see that, maybe they'll save Arrakis for the second season. I just think just exploring the Bene Gesserit, the different worlds, the aftermath of the Butler and the Jihad, thinking that these are, the dark ages, like after the humankind has taken a huge step back in terms of technology. There's just so much to explore in here. Cool. Let's move on to our last topic for today. And that's, we have big comic announcement. So again, this hasn't been officially announced, but official enough. So Brian Herbert himself went into Twitter, and he basically confirmed that they've signed on with Boom Studios to continue the comic book adaptation of the House trilogy. So basically, Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson, they have written the prequel to Dune, which is set 30 years before. And last year, we saw the adaptation release of Dune House Atreides, which basically begins 35 years before. We get to see Duke Leto, when he was young and coming into power. So that's going to be continuing with House Harkonnen and House Carino. So we can look forward to, I guess, a lot more comics in the coming years. So Simon, are you excited that they're going to be continuing with that adaptation?
I am, and also it's kind of like a no-brainer when you think about it. As long as they make this trilogy of the houses, if they don't adapt other stuff in comic form, it's fine. But I think it was a no-brainer thinking about it, that they were going to start with one and then do the two other ones. I love the creative team that is on the current book that just wrapped up, and all 3 volumes are available on Amazon and everywhere right now, and they are beautiful hardcovers. I just want to know when they start, coming out. I know they haven't been in previews yet, so your local comic store hasn't ordered them yet. But like I said, more Dune's always good. And I love that maybe some comic fans will get into Dune because of comics. It's that cross-platform that we've always wanted, and it's finally here.
Yeah, well, I don't know why fans of comics wouldn't be drawn to a universe like Dune, because some of the franchises that we know so well even originated out of some of the ideas of Dune. So I like the way you're thinking, Simon, that if this is going to grow and continue to grow as a franchise, it's going to have multiple channels of entry into this universe. And one question I had is, it seems to me though that because right now Brian Herbert is sort of the master of Herbert Enterprises, or whatever the company is called. Is everything only going through him, and that's canon, or not even canon, that's approved, or are they going to allow other authors, writers? I know Kevin J. Anderson's right there with Brian Herbert, I get that, but it feels to me like it's still held pretty tightly to the chest in terms of this franchise currently.
And just piggybacking off that for one idea is, as we've been talking about Marvel and the MCU, and yeah, Disney knows how to really expand. I think that, I know people have their own feelings about Brian Herbert and whatnot, and I'm not totally familiar with all of that, and I haven't read any of his work, but I think it is good, at least at this point, and he's an older guy, but I'm sure he'll be around for a lot of years to come, to have him have some level of control. And I know they put out rights to different things, but to at least have some sort of oversight or creative input, just because it does keep it from being so commercialized or so corporatized, when you still have a living family member that is very much in tune with everything that's going on. And he's always posting that there's a lot of exciting things happening, there's this and there's this, but it's never it's coming from him. It's not like it's this big corporate press release where they're talking about, or they're having a big conference where they're showing off Dune 15 and Dune spinoff number 7 and all these other things. I think if over a 10-year span, let's say 2021 to 2031, we get 3 movies and maybe 2 shows or something, that is a sustainable, healthy, I think, level of attention and quality control. And I think that to me, that feels like a hopeful ideal right there, as far as that's concerned. But we'll see what happens. Money talks, and it's going to grow maybe exponentially, and who knows. But I think right now, I think we're in a good position from everything that I have seen and heard over the last few years.
Going back to the whole Disney Star Wars thing, it used to be just George. It used to be just Lucasfilm. It was Lucas had to approve everything. He had to put his stamp on it and being like, yes, this is the design I want. And when he sold that franchise, it became Disney. And the way I look at it is pretty much it's Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni that run the show right there. And obviously they can't clone themselves, so they get other people to work on projects, very much like the Kevin Feige Disney stuff. And Garin, going back to what you were saying, how comic fans and just fans in general should be so familiar with Dune kind of being, I hate using the grandfather of sci-fi, but like perfect example, earlier I was watching Kenobi with my fiance and she's like, why is it every time I see something now in Star Wars, it makes me think of Dune? In episode 3 of Kenobi, there is a little bit of music that sounds very much like Hans Zimmer's music. So I'm like, Dune still influences a lot. And when your eyes are open, you see it. So I think in the long run, a lot of people will go back and being like, whoa, Dune was there from the beginning. Like, look, I'm wearing a Kenobi shirt. I love Star Wars. Like I've said this a million times, but George and everyone else is influenced a big portion of everything they've done because of Dune. Tatooine would not exist if Arrakis wasn't there.
Agree overall with that sentiment. It totally makes sense not to. There is a huge universe to explore with Dune. Like let's be real. They could tell a story that's has nothing to do with Arrakis and nothing to do with the trades, but you get to explore cultures of these different societies in the Empire. There's over 10,000 years of different time periods. So there is a lot to explore, but I totally think it makes sense for them to focus more on the quality at this stage and really like keep things focused, stay true to the original source material.
It's just a great time to be a Dune fan. I mean, we're getting possibly 3 movies, a TV show, a bunch of comics, some toys, some McFarlane, stuff. I'm just excited that now I'm not that awkward kid like I was in high school. Like, hey man, do you know about Dune? Like people know. Like at work, I sell so many 4Ks and Blu-rays of it, and I'm not the one that's being like, hey, you should buy that. Like people come up and I'm like, have you seen it? No, but my friend told me it was really good, or yeah, I really liked it. I'm thinking of going and reading the book. So seeing that interaction, that people are excited about Dune, because let's be honest, a year ago, it was a small portion of the world. It was the Dune fans. And now because of this movie and, in Denis, I completely trust, and Legendary and Warner Brothers and everyone, they've expanded that door. They made it so it's going to be part of pop culture. By the end of the theatrical run of part 2, especially with everyone that's now cast and how well the first one did. And remember, it did amazingly for a time when people weren't really going to the theater. I think Dune Part 2 is going to be a big hit. And I think it's going to become, I don't know, as big as Star Wars, but it has the possibility. Interestingly enough, going on a different subject, in the 84 movie when it came out, my parents had a store in France that was kind of like Five Below, like one of those stores where you like Big Lots. And how I got introduced to the toys, and I've talked about this, Dune toys were my gateway drugs, was their wholesaler was like, hey, this has the possibility of being a big hit, so you should buy toys like the Star Wars toys that were going to be, that made millions of dollars. But sadly, and Simon ended up with a bunch of Dune figures as a kid, but that's how I got introduced to it. So it's always been there. And even if you look at the promotional material for the 84 movie, they're saying it's a big world like Star Wars. And now we have the internet, we have social media where people tweet about it, they post about it. We do a podcast about it. I feel like this is the right time. And it might have taken 60 years for Frank Herbert to really, his world being introduced, but it's the right time. It's a great time to be a Dune fan.
And we've heard from a few people how For example, gaming was the way that they got into Dune, like with games over 20 years ago. And now we have a new game, like we'll have some coverage of that coming up. But let's go ahead and wrap up for today.
This is Johnny Sobchak again. Great episode once again, talking about all this exciting news in the Dune universe with these gentlemen. And I'm sure, like I said, we're really in a sweet spot here where things are really going to be kicking off. Filming next month for part 2. Maybe more news about the show as production leads up to that in the fall. So for a lot of the big high profile things, I'm sure we'll have more to discuss and look forward to. And you can find me, of course, all my thoughts on that and more at Johnny Sobchak on Twitter.
Yeah, this is Garin. You can find me on Twitter at Dune Companion. Yeah, I was really bolstered by my experience of going seeing Top Gun, and it was like people waiting outside to get in. Theaters are packed, and I just can't wait till we all go to see Dune Part 2. And I think it'll be that kind of an experience. And this is an exciting time. I'm just trying to figure out how to get on the set in Budapest. That's my goal.
Gotta shave that head. Yeah, I haven't seen Top Gun Part 2, but I want to. I'm probably gonna do that, and I can't wait that I can say, hey, I saw Dune Part 2 at the movie theaters next year. This is Simon Dowdy. You can find me on Twitter and Insta as Dowdy. Thank you so much for spending this time with us and talking about Dune. Like, I also am asking Legendary / Warner Brothers, please give us a couple days after this podcast is published, and don't give us any big news.
Yeah, and we were mentioning that at the top of the show. So it's been a quieter period also for our show, but we are working behind the scenes to bring the show out more often, especially in the summer when there's going to be a lot more news to talk about. So yeah, this is Marcus Gabriel. We're really excited to be covering Dune in a time like this. So there's a lot more to come. You can find me writing at dunenewsnet.com and on Twitter at dunenewsnet and Instagram. So yeah, thanks everybody, and talk to you next time.
We hope you've enjoyed Dune Talk. Remember to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you know when the next episode drops. Stay tuned to DuneNewsNet.com and add us to your social feeds. Be the first to hear breaking news and reviews.